Hello Peter and anybody else who just happens to be viewing at this point. I'm doing a quick audio and video check to make sure everything is working properly. If you can hear me and see me, if you could put a comment down in the live chat, that would really help. Assuming everything's working, I will see you at the bottom of the hour at 7:30. Bye for now. Okay, let's redo this sound and video check and see if anyone is actually watching or listening at this point. If it's all working, if you could just do the usual and stick a comment down in the live chat, that would really help. Thanks very much. See you at past. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to In Studio Live, the 42nd edition. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for 42 weeks. The same length of time that we've had lockdown restrictions. Anyway, Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to the show tonight, our Christmas special. I hope you've got your mince pies and your mulled wine to hand as we look at your Christmas images and some of my Christmas images to try and inspire you for how to capture this most unusual of Christmases. So let's get started, and let's get things going tonight quickly. Right, so lots of information appearing on my screen here. So welcome one and all. If I haven't welcomed you by name in the live chat, my apologies. You are more than welcome here. I think I missed Walter because we were just about to start as I spotted his name pop in there. So anyway, if you're new to watching this, and I'm hoping we might have a few newbies watching, perhaps not live, but on the recorded version. So we've had a bit of an influx on the Facebook group this week, and I think mainly down to Peter sending out invitations. Thank you, Peter. We've got quite a few international viewers or international people on the Facebook group, some of whom said they're not able to watch live because of the time differences, but I've had at least one person say they're going to watch on the replay. So if you are new to this, if I could just ask you to do me a huge favour, and that is just take a moment to hit the subscribe button so that you'll get the notifications when these live streams are happening and when the videos that I'm planning to put up in the new year start to go live on the YouTube channel on there. So please do that and hit that little bell icon as well. That means you get the notification. And if you are watching on the replay, please add a comment in there so I know you've watched it, so I know that you're here. It just helps me know what's going on, who's watching, and it helps me plan for the future, how to tailor this live stream and the training that it's contained in there. And of course, hit the like button. We have a little bit of a game here right at the start each week to see whether we can beat the record of how many likes by the time I get to the end of the intro. And last week we got a record of 17 likes. And we've got 19 concurrent viewers at the moment, so if you all hit the like button, we're going to beat that. And that'd be a nice little Christmas present, wouldn't it? So go hit the like button. Why do I ask this? It's because it sends a signal to the YouTube algorithm that people who watch this show actually like it, so they're more likely to push it out and let people know about it. So thank you for doing that on there. And of course, do let other people know about both the Facebook group and the live stream. I'm here sharing information about photography, trying to help you improve with your photography. And I just need to get the message out there. So if you are able to share it, then please do. If you don't know already, these are weekly shows that stay on YouTube in their entirety for a while. When I say a while, at the moment, that's at least 6 months. But New Year's resolution to try and do something about that and get the editing and the cut down versions all sorted, and then the full version will still be available but only to my Academy members. And of course there will be appropriate extracts left on YouTube. Well, not just this YouTube channel, but I have 2 others as well, a travel photography one and a Lightroom one, and the links to those are somewhere in the margins of YouTube. Or is it down below? I can never remember where it is, but you can go and subscribe to those as well on there. Right, so do ask questions in the live chat if you're watching live. I will try and answer those questions as we go through. We've got 3 points within the show where I can do that. If you're watching on the replay, put your questions in the comments field. I do read all the questions in there, and I do intend to answer all of them. I think there was one this week which I haven't yet dealt with. I've just realised there was an extra question in there. I might need to check that a little bit later. The other thing is, if you find the shows helpful and you want to contribute financially to help keeping them going, because it does cost to do this, then there is also a link down below, which is my Buy Me a Cuppa link. It's the same thing as Buy Me a Coffee, which you may have seen a lot of YouTubers use, except I don't drink coffee, so mine says Buy Me a Tea. Each week I'll put a different name on the mug each live stream, and I'm working my way down the list. So if you've bought me a cuppa and your name's not appeared on the mug yet, just be patient. I'm doing them in the order in which the donations first came in. And this week, my thanks goes to Mark Gerard, for this week's cuppa. So cheers and Merry Christmas, Mark. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been contributing that way. And I keep a tally of those cuppas. And if you've bought me a cuppa, if you buy me a cuppa this week, or you're already in credit, as some of you are, I'm going to send out my Christmas inspiration sheet, which is what I've used as the basis for some of the things I'm going to be talking about tonight on the live stream. So thank you. That's my little thank you. It's just a way of me acknowledging the donations that people have. They're already available to all my Academy members. So if you're an Academy member, thank you for supporting me that way. And obviously you've got access to the inspiration sheets already. Right. So as it says on the screen, that giveaway, anyone who buys me a cup of tea between now and Saturday will get that inspiration sheet sent out to them. There is the Facebook group. If you don't already know about it, that's the link. That's where the conversation continues during the week, and it's where I give news about what's going on. And also on the Facebook group, we now change the banner image each week. It's no longer one of my photos that goes up there, but I pick one of my favorite images from the week. I convert it into a banner, which may mean a little bit of cropping on there, or a little bit of manipulation to make it work. And I change it each Sunday night. And at the end of the show, I will announce what the Christmas banner is going to be. Who's going to have the banner over Christmas? Well, stay tuned and find out. Last week's was Richard Lovelock, as you can see on the screen. Will it be yours this week? I have a newsletter. The link to subscribe to it is there, also down below in the comments. And if you're on that mailing list, you should have received one today. If you think you're on the mailing list and didn't get one today, then get in touch, because it probably means you're not on the mailing list. Simple as that. And if you're not, go to that link and sign up, because I do send things out there. So what have we got on the show this week? Well, it's Christmas. Well, it was until Boris cancelled it yesterday. Anyway, we're going to try and celebrate Christmas here on the live stream with some photography hints and tips. I'm going to give some feedback on your images. I've got the live Q&A, and I'm going to give you advice on how to capture images. Right. Have we beaten the record on likes? The answer is a resounding no. There's 19 of you watching and only 12 of you have liked it. So seven of you don't like it. I feel hurt. It's Christmas and you don't like what I'm doing. Oh well, we'll try again next week on that. Right, okay, Q&A part 1. Just to reiterate how it all works, stick your questions in the live chat. Let's have a look what's in the live chat now. Michael's bought himself, well, let's do it this way. Michael's bought himself a Christmas present of some extension tubes for doing some macro photography. So yeah, once you've got some shots with those, Michael, do stick them in the forum for us to have a look at. That'd be great. Oh, and we've got Martin's joined us as well. Hi, Martin. On there, I'll be looking at one of your images in a short while. Yeah, if you've got questions in the week, then you can either put them in the comments of one of the past shows, or you can email me directly and I will pick them all up and deal with them in due course. So first of all, let's have a look at some images. Now, just to explain about image feedback, this is going to change in the new year because I'm going to be doing 2 shows a week, one which will be feedback, one which will be more teaching on there, because the shows were getting a bit too long. So the feedback, I've got a dedicated email address now called feedback@ians-studio.co.uk, and any images which are sent there get priority on the feedback section. I do those first, and the reason for that is Facebook does a couple of nasty things to any images. It crunches up all the blacks, so we lose a lot of detail. It compresses the images, so we get artifacts. And most annoyingly of all, it removes all the shooting data, so I can't give you sensible feedback on them. Whereas if you email them to me, I've got all that information available, so I can give better feedback. So anything that gets emailed during the week to that email address, I will do first on any of the feedback shows. And they are going to be from January. Feedback's going to be done midweek on Wednesdays, and the teaching side will be on a Sunday night. So just to let you know that that's happening on there. Let's have a look at those images. Let me go over to Lightroom on here and change my display. Right, yes, here we are. These are all ones which were emailed to me. So let's have a look at these. This is from Martin Atfield, which is a multiplicity shot. And, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do. Have a look at the shooting data. Now, it's a shot from 2011, 9 years ago. On that, and for anyone who doesn't know how these shots are created, you put the camera on tripod, you take 3 separate images, you put them as a layer in Photoshop, you align them, and then you mask out to reveal the different layers. And that's exactly what Martin has done. I can't remember, Martin, were you at the workshop I did when I was explaining how to do it? But I have a feeling this might have been done before then. Can't remember. But I do have a YouTube video on how to do it. If you look down my list of videos, it's the oldest video, more or less, on this YouTube channel, and it goes through the whole process of how you create these. So right, a little bit of feedback on this one, Martin. Now I know it's an old image and I know your photography has improved, but just a couple of things to point out about it. The main thing is watch out for the flash in the background there. That actually is not that tricky to sort out, or shouldn't be. Let's see whether I can do it. I'm going to use the spot removal brush, and I'm going to just position that about there, and then I'm just going to match up a better area that will work, something like that. And I think that needs to be a little bit larger for it to work. And something, there we go. If I go full screen so you can see, come out of that. Just a little quick fix on there, because that was drawing the eye away. It's a little bit dark in the shadow area, so if we just boost that a tad on there. And this area, this version of you, is a little bit I was going to say a little bit blown out. Yeah, there's a little bit of a highlight on there. So I just bring the highlights down very slightly and that will match that up. Overall, the exposure, just a tad. So minor changes like that. There's the before and the after with it. Just minor tweaks on there, Martin. But what I want to say about this, despite those little adjustments, this is actually a really good example of how to do a multiplicity shot. You've got the 3 characters in there. You've got a different color top on for each of them. You've got that different look with it, different expressions. They're all doing different things, and it does make up a big it makes up a scene where they're sort of interacting with each other as well. I really do like it. Well done, and thanks for sharing it. Amir, don't know whether you're watching tonight. This was one of the ones that was left over from last week. It came in a little bit on the last minute. And let's have a look at the shooting data on it. And right, I don't know. Right, if I put that on, do we have any indication of where it is in the captions and stuff? No, we don't. It's a cathedral. Nicely done, actually. A lot of the images, I'm beginning to wonder whether it's because I'm under studio light, but I do see a lot of images which are just a fraction dark. And I think I'm right in saying that because when I look at the histogram here, everything's, apart from just a few bits, they are on the dark side of it. So with this, I would just bring up the exposure a little bit to sort of bring everything into the just over the halfway mark. Now that's caused a few things there to blow out, so I can compensate by just bringing those highlights back on there, and that's all it needs. Now, a couple of great things to point out about this image that Amir's done is he's positioned himself bang in the middle of the image of the scene, so that it's symmetrical. Just slightly off on the edge. Maybe we can sort that by just doing there, and then it's truly symmetrical. But the fact that he'd gone in the middle of the aisle, got that position, he's got all the verticals spot on with it, and that all really helps the image to work on this. So it's a really nice image, Amir. Let me just have a look at the shooting data on it. It was a 2-second exposure, so obviously it was on tripod, f11, so as a sharp point of the lens. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, nicely sharp on there. Ticks all the boxes. Well done, Amir. It's a great image. Thank you for sharing it. Peter, right. This is an interesting one. Obviously, a Christmas tree decoration. 60th of a second at f4. Now, a couple of things about this. I can see what you've tried to do here. You've got that arc of material, but the carpet, I should think, arcing up and going out of focus in the background. I think something like this would have worked better outside. So if you would have put this on a wall outside, so that, and still kept that shallow depth of field, you'd have had much more of a bokeh type effect in the background, the blurred background, assuming it was you could get a background distance away. That sort of approach, I think, would have made it a bit more interesting on here. I'm going to develop as well, because I just want to look at the histogram on here. I think it can take just a little bit more lightening up on there. The only things that are blown out are these specular highlights there, which I'm not worried about on that. So I think it just needed a third of a stop more in there with it, and I think that looks good. I am slightly puzzled at the depth of field on it, because it appears to come back into focus here. So it's out of focus, it's clearly out of focus, in focus, out of focus, in focus. So it's a little bit weird on there, but nice idea with it. I like the fact that you're off center with it on there. So those were just a few suggestions to do with it on that. Let's have a look at the EXIF data again. ISO 400. Again, if you'd gone outside, you could have got that ISO down a little bit. Not that there's much of a problem with it, although, slightly out of focus on there. Now, I don't know what you used as your focusing point on here. It's not quite as sharp as I would like. I would like to see the eyes tack sharp, and they're not quite with it. And I think if you'd done that, the rest going out of focus slightly wouldn't have mattered too much with it. 24 to 120 lens, yeah, at 98mm. I wonder whether there might be a little bit of camera shake. Don't know. No, it doesn't look like camera shake. I think it's just the focusing. Watch where you focus on it. Focus on the eyes, even though they are closed on that. So let's move on. Another one from Peter. I'm assuming this is intended as a background for something, the gold. This is one that is underexposed for my liking. And you've already added in a +1. If I go full screen so everyone can see this a little bit better. You've added in +1 on the exposure compensation. I think it needs a little bit more than that. So I would give it another. So I would like to see it's something like that. And we're not blown out on other areas. And if we were, we could just bring them back on the highlights there. And that, to my mind, looks much more gold in colour to use as a background on there. With that, move on. John, yes. This, the bauble. I haven't got the Scary Santa shot. Excuse me. On here, but I love this technique. Now, for anyone who doesn't know how these sort of shots are made, there's two parts to it. And correct me if I am wrong, John, but I'm assuming you did it the way I'm about to describe. There are a couple of other ways of doing it, but I think you will have done it the normal way. And that is, you have a flash gun set up so that you are going to illuminate the scene with a flash, and that will give you a solid image. But if you do a long exposure for available light and you zoom as you're doing it, you get two images superimposed on top of each other in camera. You get the light streaks coming out. That's from the available light. The Christmas lights on the tree provide that. And then the flash gives a single frozen image superimposed on there, a sort of double exposure. So looking at the data on here, what have we got? We've got an 8-second exposure. So that is the flash, those streaks of light on there. I'm wondering actually whether it was all available light and whether John did something like did the zoom and then left it static on the bauble for a few seconds afterwards for the sake of argument, maybe a 1 or 2 second zoom and then a 7 or 6 second without zooming to capture everything that's not moving. And I'm wondering whether he did it that way, looking at the data on here. ISO 100. I think it was possibly done that way, although the way I would normally do it would be I'd get the frozen image using a flash to do it. But however you did it, John, it works. It's a lovely shot. Those rays of light coming out of there really work. So thank you for sharing it. It's nicely exposed as well. I can see there's some vignetting on there, which I think you've done in post-production looking at it. On that, the whole thing just comes together and works really well. Moving off the Christmas theme to a pair of images from Gary Platt. These he sent to illustrate the effect of a polarizing filter. Now, I just want to pull up the notes that he sent. So let me just do that on my machine. Christmas Lightroom images from email. There we go. Right. Oh, that was odd. What happened to my document? It's moved onto a different screen where it shouldn't be. We pull it over onto here. And I can just tell you then what Gary had to say about it. Bit of an experiment earlier this week. Two images are both long exposures of the same waterfall. The first is with a polarizing lens to neutralize the glare on the glare. The second is without the polarizing lens. The difference is quite staggering, but what really surprised him is not the impact on the water, but the overall density of colours in the entire scene. So the first one is the polarized one, the second one is without. So let's have a look at those. So that, if I've got these in the right order, that's number one, number two. So there we go. With the polarizing filter and without, there's a definite change in colour from it. Now, why would that be? Well, some of it would be the moisture on the leaves. So effectively you are cutting through a reflection on there. And for anyone who doesn't know how a polarizing filter works, light is a waveform, and it's obviously it goes up and down as waveforms do. And a polarizing filter makes sure that all that up and down is exactly in the same direction. So normally, if the light's coming here from right to left, some of it might be zigging in and out that way. Some of it might be zigging and zagging up and down. Some of it at 45 degrees. What polarizing filters do, it says, right, I'm going to make sure everything is just going up and down in the one direction going through. So effectively, it is cutting out some of the light. And that odd directions is often caused by reflections. Thus the reason why we use it to cut through reflections. So you're cutting out some light, and you're cutting out the light that's bounced off things in peculiar directions. That's why the colours will look more saturated. Now, what I would say about this, to my eye, is the white balance doesn't look quite right on it. And I'm trying to work out what it is on there about the white balance. Because we've got a definite change with it. Have we got any changes with exposure? Yeah, there's a very slight change of, whoops, get this the right way around, 102 seconds versus 110 seconds. So there is a slight change in exposure on that. It's not huge, but that would account for some of it, because the darker one is the slightly underexposed one. Now so that would account for some of the darkness on there, but it really does show the effects of the polarizing filter. And I suspect you've also got some other filters on there as well to get an exposure at that that sort. Where's your f22? Don't know. On there at ISO 100 with the polarizing filter. Yeah, maybe you have used that to cut out some. Yeah, it's interesting to see, because a polarizing filter will take light out. So the fact that you are exposing for less, I'd have expected with a polarizing filter for you to need a longer exposure. So I think that will account for some of the apparent colour saturation that's there. But if we look at the leaves down at the bottom of the image, we can see the effect of the polarizer on there. But it's a pretty good example on it. But there are a few things. I don't think it's a perfect test, I'm afraid. The other thing I just want to play with is that white balance on there. I just want to have a look at some others. I would say it just needs that little tweak to the white balance as well. So if I go to the other one and say previous on there, they now match up on terms of white balance. And yeah, oops, going the wrong way. So nice shot on there, and it does illustrate the point about that difference with the polarizing filter. Peter sent this one, which is one of these 3D nativity scenes, and he was saying he was having a problem with depth of field and focusing. Let's have a look at the shooting data on this. F11, so that should give you a reasonable depth of field. Let's have a look. The Mary and Jesus are slightly out. Interesting. I can see the sharp part appears to be in line with Joseph. The king's over here. This king is slightly out of focus. Actually, the background seems quite in focus as well, because we can see, I go full screen for you, we can see the printing dots in there much clearer than we can say on Mary. Nice see. What you can do with things like this, where you're struggling to get the whole thing in focus, is to use a technique called focus stacking. Now, I normally do it with focusing rails, but you can also do it by minutely changing the focus. It's not quite as accurate like that, because the chances are you might knock the camera. But the likes of Infinity and Photoshop allow you to deal with that. Now, the other thing that I think Peter mentioned about it was dealing with these shadows on the background. And that's because you've got a flash off to camera left on there. One of the ways to deal with that would be, assuming this was in the home, assuming you've got a white ceiling, point your flash not towards the scene, but point it vertically upwards, let it bounce off the ceiling and onto there, and that would help it, because that will diffuse the light so you don't get such a sharp shadow behind the different figures with something like that. Next, yes, another one of these zoom images. This one by Robin was done a different way. This is a composite, and I can tell it's a composite because these streaks of light stop at the edge of the angel on there, whereas the ones we saw before, they carried on through. Now, Robin, you could have fooled me by editing it in a very slightly different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to nip over to Photoshop with this, and I will show you a slightly different edit to it. So edit in Photoshop, edit a copy of it, because I want to compare my edit with your original. So here we are, and I'll go full screen because what I'm going to be talking about initially is hidden. We've got two layers here. First of all, we've got the background layer, which would be the zoom effect that we talked about, zooming whilst taking the photo. And one of the techniques for that is start your zoom, then press the shutter and do it that way. The other layer is the cutout of the angel, which I guess Robin photographed independently and then took into Photoshop and selected and cut out and put the two together like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this top layer, and I just drag that onto the plus sign down here, and with this top layer what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a blur to it. So filter and blur, and the one I want is radial blur, and there's two different types of them. There's a spin type or there's the zoom type, and we want for this the zoom type. And it's just a matter of finding a value that works for your image. So I think somewhere about 70 should work for this. So we've now got a little bit we've got that zoom effect visible on the angel, but that has obscured some of the details that we want to see. So what we want to do now with it is make sure that we can see through. So I'm now going to put a layer mask on here, which is the black circle on there. Now, when you paint on a layer mask, you paint on with black, it reveals through. So I get my paintbrush, I've got black shown on there, and I can now start painting in the things I want to come through. Now, I don't want to lose all the zoom effect, so I'm going to set my opacity, let's say 50% on there. I'm going to use I'll do it off the menu actually. I want it to be very soft, and I want to fit a reasonable sized brush. So I'm just going to start painting in so that the face is there, and I just want a little bit of that showing through in the middle, something like that. Maybe that's a bit much, so if I flip over on there, I'm now painting with white. I can just soften that off. Again, make the brush bigger. I'm using the square bracket key just to make that a little bit larger on there. Now, that's starting to work, but we're not seeing this blurring come off there. So one easy way to get that blurring to be even deeper is to duplicate the whole layer. So I'm just going to drag this whole layer onto here, so I've got two copies of it. We're now starting to see a bit more, and maybe a third. So we've got that blurring coming through there now. At this point, I'm starting to see, well, I need to do a bit more with that face so that detail can come through. So on this top layer, select the mask, make sure it's set to black on here, make the brush size a little bit smaller, and I just need to make sure that face comes through. And the same, I've got to do it on all the layers to make this work. And oh, didn't mean that. I was on the wrong layer on the mask. So there we go. That's sort of working. So now you can see that zoom effect comes through. But one thing that we still can't see a lot of these lines going all the way through. We can see some of it, but not all of it. So what we need to do is with this with the original layer, we need to just soften the edges on it. Now I'm going to duplicate it once again, and that looks a little bit odd. Yeah, that's why. Undo that duplication because I didn't drag it, I just hit the thing. So I've got it on there. I'm going to hide one copy of it because I'm actually going to be getting rid of edges on there. I just want to keep a clean copy. So now I put in another mask. This time what I'm going to do is on this mask, if I just hide these other layers, what I'm going to do, I just want to sort of blur the edges on here so we can see what we can just see through just a little bit around the edge like that. So a little bit of that area comes through, and maybe even take the opacity down just a fraction as well. Let's see what that looks like when I put the rest back on there. So now we've got the zoom effect on the angel as well. So we can see these lines going all the way through, and it looks like both parts were photographed at the same time. And we can control how much of it is visible by just controlling some of these layers and how many of them are visible. I quite like that version. We can see what it is. We can see the glow effect on there, the zooming out effect with it. So that's my preferred version. So now File, Exit. Go and save it, yes. This will take me back into Lightroom. So now we can go from my version, oops, Robin's version, mine. Which is the better? It's entirely down to personal choice on there, and I don't claim mine is any better than Robin's, just different. I just wanted to show a different technique for editing this kind of shot so that it's not so obvious that it's a composite on there. And I'll be honest with you, Robin, if you'd presented it like this, I would never have known it was a composite. I probably wouldn't have realised on there. But yours has the advantage that you can see the angel properly, whereas you can't with mine. So you pays your money, you takes your choice on that. All right, a couple of images from John, not Christmas ones. This is a sunset. A bit bland, I'm afraid, John, this one, and you've bullseyed the sun, and I've said many times I don't like bullseyed sun on there. I'd like to have seen that sun a little bit lower in the sky on that and not in the middle. This one's quite nice. I'd like to see a few tweaks with it though. I'd like to see contrast in there, maybe a bit more exposure, make it work, and clarity with it, maybe even a bit of texture, possibly a bit of dehaze like that. It needs the horizon tweaking on there, and the sky, well, there's a lot we could do with the sky, and I've covered that on previous live streams, so I'm not going to do it now. If I want to center that up, you'd end up with something along those lines. To be honest, it's an okay shot. I've seen better from you, John, than that one. Now this is a bit better. The sky's more interesting. You've still got a tendency to nearly bullseye things. So what I'm going to do is just chop a bit from the bottom, and that works a little bit better. I doubt with this being a JPEG we can recover much of the detail there. If you've got the original RAW file, we should be able to get that detail back on there. That's possible, because with this you can see there's just nothing there to recover on the JPEG with it, unfortunately. But yeah, interesting shot. I'd like to see a bit more foreground interest with it. And that is a set of images those are the ones which were sent by email. So I've gone in through those a bit more detail than some of the others. I'll do the ones from Facebook in a little while. Let's have a look what's been going on in chat while I've been talking, and let's see what's going on. Whoa. Right, okay, so what's been going on here? What's other than cost, what's the benefit of extension tubes versus a good quality macro lens? Right. Right, okay. Yeah, John confirmed my thoughts about the long exposure and then zoom, with no flash. And Peter's was lit by sunlight through the window, thus the shadows. Yeah, I would try a flash pointing up at the ceiling for yours, Peter. And it sounds like Martin wasn't at my workshop. From there, and Walter wants to know about benefits of extension tubes. Right, I'll deal with that a little bit later when I get to Q&A. I want to just talk about my photo challenge that's coming up, the photo bingo, very briefly. There's been a post in the Facebook group about this. It starts on January the 1st. And everyone who's taking part will get a bingo card. This is the sort of thing it looks like. It will be 25 random topics laid out on a grid. So every card will be different. You won't all have the same topics, and even if you do, the chances of the squares being in the same places. So you'll see why that's important in a moment. And from the January the 1st, you can shoot one image, up to one image a day. You can take days off to try and fill in the squares on your bingo card. The aim is to try and get you out doing some photography. So you've got 25 topics. Some will be the same as some other people. Some will be different on there. The full details on the Facebook group with a link through to my blog where I go into much more detail. And if you want to take part, what you need to do is look for that post on the Facebook group, pick a number between 1 and 30 that hasn't already been taken, and that will be your card when I generate them all. And on the 1st of January at 1 minute past midnight, the cards will become available, and you can have a look what yours are. So you can only cross off one square per day. All the photos have to be taken on or after the 1st of Jan. Now, there's going to be a challenge, the first person to fill their bingo card. There's also going to be some sort of sub-challenges. For example, first person to get all 4 corners, first person to get both diagonals, first person to fill the middle line, the middle column, the top and bottom lines, things like that. And for each challenge that you complete, and there's a list in that blog post of what they are, some of them are first person, and there are some for anyone just completing the card. If you complete a challenge, you will earn some points. Prize points, I'm calling them, for the sake of any other name. And if you amass enough points, you can cash them in for a prize. What are those prizes? Well, they're not physical things. I hope they're going to be of value. They start off with things like portfolio reviews, where I will work with you one-on-one to do a review of a number of images. Similar sort of thing that I do here on the YouTube channel, but in a little bit more depth, and you'll be able to send me 5 images. I'll do a recording for you. You can cash them in for a mentoring call from me, a 30-minute mentoring call, if you get enough points. Now, these points, if you don't get them all on this challenge, on other challenges throughout the year, there'll be a chance to amass more points. If you are local and want to use my studio, you could cash them in for studio hire time. You could cash them in for a mentored shoot with me, or you could cash them in, subject to availability and being able to do this, to join me on a shoot that I'm doing. And I would discuss with you whether that is appropriate, and you cash your points in for that if you're one of the lucky winners. So it's worth having a go at this. But even if you're not going for the prizes on it, do have a go at the challenge, because the aim of it isn't about winning a prize. The aim of it is to help you with your photography and to encourage you to get out there and to use your camera. And as you saw on there, lots of different topics, some of which you can probably do anywhere, some of which you'll have to give a little bit of thought to. So I'm not expecting anyone to finish it in the 25 days. I'm thinking that for most people, you might manage to do it by the end of March. For some, it might take them all year to actually get everything that's on there. If you really want to blitz it, yes, you could do it in a month, and you'll get some bonus prize credits if you do manage to do that. So I encourage you to have a go at it, try that out, sign up for it. At the moment, all you need to do is find the post in the Facebook group and pick your number. At the moment, I'm saying numbers between 1 and 30. If we run out of numbers between if we get 30 people taking part, I will then I'll generate some more cards, and it will be, you'll have, be able to choose numbers 31 to 60. But at the moment, numbers 1 to 30 to take part. And actually, already nearly half of the numbers have gone. So it looks like it's going to be a good challenge. So there we go, that's coming up. Right, let's just talk a little bit about Christmas photography. That's our theme for tonight. And again, I'm just going to do my usual thing of look through a number of images and give a little bit of background about how they're created and some of the techniques I use. And my aim is to just inspire you so that you can create some interesting Christmas images this year, despite all the various lockdowns and restrictions which are on us. So the first one I want to talk about is Christmas wreaths. And the idea, if you've got a wreath on the door, and I'm amazed at how many doors have this year. So I'm right on theme, because my Christmas card, it's not this particular shot, but I shot it January last year, and that was a door wreath on my mum's house. This one's not. This one's in Malta, I believe. But there's a trick with it, there's a technique with doing these types of shots, and that is to make sure if you've got a panelled door, you want to keep all your verticals vertical and your horizontals horizontal, and you do that, I've said it many times on the live stream before, keep the back of your camera parallel to the surface that you're photographing. If you do that, if you tilt it down or tilt it up, you'll get the converging verticals. Or if you're off to one side, you'll get those converging horizontals. You can correct it in post-production, but it's better to get it right in camera. Christmas tree is obvious subject to photograph. And one of the things I would say is think about not necessarily photographing the whole tree, but sections of it and details of it. We already saw some like that earlier. So as you can see with this image, it's just a section of it over my shoulder. You don't need the whole tree. Even a single bauble. Now, if you get that shallow depth of field, the lights in the background will become a lovely bokeh effect there. There's pools of light in the background. So think about that. My top tip for photographing Christmas trees is nothing to do with this photograph. I just put it in because it happens to meet the category, and that is, unless you're a genius at dressing a Christmas tree, then try and find ones in shopping centres and stately homes and things like that, if there's anything open, if there's anything we can still go to. Maybe this is a tip for next year, and photograph those, because that's where the professionals have dressed the tree, and all the ones that you've seen so far, none of those have been my Christmas tree. They're all better than I can do when it comes to dressing a Christmas tree. Again, another detail. This one's a controversial one. What's controversial about it? Well, there's a use of pop colour in there. I don't normally recommend pop colour, but this one, the little bit of the green on the tree, it kind of worked for the image, so I went with it. On there. This one is on my Christmas tree. I went in for a particular detail. This is an olive wood decoration that actually came from Bethlehem. That's where I bought it. So it's a Bethlehem one, kind of appropriate. But yeah, concentrate on individual items such as baubles or particular decorations. Let's talk about nativity scenes and photographing them. And again, like Christmas trees, unless you've got a particularly good one, try and find the third-party ones and concentrate on details from it. You don't need to capture the whole scene, just individual details will tell a story. In fact, I don't know whether we've got any international viewers other than Peter watching tonight, but I know Spain is particularly good for nativity scenes. I'm not sure what France is like for them, but Spain is brilliant. They have these huge nativity scenes, Belems they call them, and you can concentrate on individual details from those. Here I just picked out Mary and Joseph and Jesus on that. Or you can just pick an individual from a scene. Here we've just got an angel, which I think was on the top of one of these nativity scenes that I photographed on there. Individual figures often work much better than trying to capture the whole scene. Well, what about creating your own? This one is a homemade one that I did. In fact, it was made purely for the purposes of photographing. And it's not a composite, the whole thing was created in camera. So how was it done? Well, let's show you the behind the scenes on it. Here's the behind the scenes shot. Now, it's using my, my desktop studio setup. And what I've done is I've got the blue card in an arc forming the background on there. Then in front of that I put the brown card and put straw over the top of that. The black, the silhouettes, are just bits of card cut out. I drew basic shapes. If I just go back, you'll see just how basic they really are actually. They're circles and triangles with bits cut off, and I drew them out, cut round them, and they are actually stood up vertically on there. There's little supports behind because I wanted the shadow coming forward, and you can't quite see it on that shot. I experimented with lots of different ones, but you can just about see the shadows here streaming forward. That was the idea behind it, but it didn't quite show up as much as I wanted. But they are vertical on there. The flash is at the top of the scene, so the light's coming forward, and because of where it is, you get this sort of fall off of the light going upwards, so it goes into night, as it were, above the stable effect. So that is how I created it. Another idea, one to do on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve, is just a close-up of the presents, just to sort of a feel for what that's like. We get the presents all wrapped up each year, and then within minutes we tear the paper apart and we forget what it looks like, all that lovely scene, all the stacked presents. So why not capture that as a memory of your Christmas? And the meal as well. How often do we forget what our Christmas meals look like? This was the last Christmas meal I had at my parents'. It was a few years before my father died, but it was the last time my wife and I and my mum and dad were together for a Christmas meal at their house. I didn't know that was going to be the last time, but I captured the table all set up. I think I just wanted a photo of the day actually at the time, but it's a nice memory for me now of that day, the turkey on the table. I then posed the aftermath shot as well, the crowns scattered on the table, the half-drunk wine, etc., etc. So think about that, things you can photograph on Christmas Day. Right there. And maybe a little bit further into Christmas, the last bit of cake on there. Now I seem to remember this was a cake, I think my wife made the cake and I did the icing on it. Last time we've done that for a few years, we end up buying it these days. So yeah, tells the tale of Christmas through the remains of the cake on there and the hung up hat at the end of Christmas. So again, just ideas to help you come up with things to photograph at Christmas. Now let's just move on to photographing people and specifically models. As I know there's some of you on the live stream who photograph models, and I want to just go through a few ideas with that. First of all, my box of delight photo that we've got here. I love this shot. Now, on my little display, because it's in PowerPoint and the way PowerPoint deals with things, and I'm watching this on my my iPad, you can't see the detail in the shadow areas. I hope you can on your screens. On there. There is enough detail in there, just about. There's light bouncing around. But how did we do it? Well, we created this box, covered it with wrapping paper, and you'll see the box in a few other shots as well. The inside of the lid, I put some silver foil on there so it reflects the light out, and the light inside is a speed light in the box with a radio trigger on it. And so the model just lifted the lid and that bounced, so the light came up, bounced on there into her face, and just that glow and expression on there with it. It's a really nice way of doing it. I've done it with models because I don't have children, but it's the sort of thing which will work really well with kids as well. The idea of opening a Christmas present. I've just seen in the chat Dougie saying that, yeah, he's done it a couple of times as well on there. Now let's talk about models and there. They don't have to be glamour shots. They don't have to be shots like I've just done there. You could try and do something a little bit funny, like the bar humbug one here. Just something a little bit different, or a little bit more pin-up style. And yes, the box on top there of that stack is the one you've just seen from the box of delights, same shoot actually. And the other box, have a look at that because that's going to appear in a moment as well. Again, it's just a few basic props. My hat, it is this hat I believe, and the tinsel that's now at the front of my desk around the model's neck, a mince pie, an old bottle, and those two boxes and some crackers on top. Creates a Christmas scene in the studio. Simple as that. Or we can do a something on this. We've got a model with a Christmas outfit offering the cracker. In post-production, I've extended the background to put her onto one side to give room for the text on there. And we have a pin-up style image. How was it lit? It was lit with a main light off to the left and a rim light off to the right, which would be, if I position it, technically it would be around about where the Y is, which was just out of the frame. It's just that it appears to be longer because I extended that in post-production to create the image. That other box was the one I used for this, and that's because it's a box with no bottom to it. It's a shell box, and that is just sitting on two chairs which were sort of facing each other with a gap. The model was in between, and I just framed my shot to keep the chairs out of there and what it's standing on. So she's just standing there going, ta-da! And as though she's just come out of the Christmas present on there. Again, it's a glamour theme, it's a pin-up theme for those who like that sort of style as well. Again, still on your pin-up theme, and that same box that we've been seeing all the way through, it just lives at the studio. It's still here that I use. And if your thing is glamour photography, well, here we go as well. Talk about pulling a cracker. On there, another idea, we had a model wrapped in wrapping paper, and she used the bow was the belt on there, which eventually became a tie on there. So again, if that sort of glamour photography is your thing, then that's an idea. Create the sequence, put them together in post-production on there. And then also, finally, just to say, think ahead. If you're the sort of person who produces a calendar, I do a calendar every year. And I always like to have something that's so Christmassy feel for the December one. So if you're planning to do something like that, look around now for what your December image is going to be in your 2022 calendar. Talk about planning ahead, because you'll be putting that calendar together probably October, November time. So this is your chance now to shoot your December image for it. So think about that. And also, if you're going to produce your own Christmas cards, I've done that, I think for about 35 years now. I've produced my own Christmas cards, either drawn or as photographs, more photographs than drawn these days. And so I'm looking around during this Christmas period for what's going to go on next year's card. And what's on my card this year that went out to the family and friends was a photograph I took last January, just before all the Christmas decorations came down. So think ahead, plan for next year in terms of your photography with that. Right, okay, so let's move into Q&A part 2. Have we got anything new in here? Yes, right, okay. Walter's question about, yes, it's just on the top of the screen there. Other than cost, what's the benefit of extension tubes versus a good quality macro lens? To be honest, I would go with a good quality macro lens every single time. Cost is the big benefit on it. There is one other benefit where I go for extension tubes over the macro lens, and that is if I'm traveling, because it means a couple of extension tubes are smaller and lighter than taking a macro lens with me. So I will often leave my macro lens at home when I'm traveling and just pack the extension tubes. I think you can get a better image with a decent macro lens over using an extension tube. Personal feeling on there. I have, however, sometimes put an extension tube on the macro lens just to extend it even further and get in that little bit closer again. And that can work as well. So it's worth thinking about that. Excuse me. I had a question come in during the week from Gary, who was asking, well, I'll read the question out. I have a question concerning Lightroom, and more specifically the dehaze slider. I found myself using this even when there is no haze present, but watching the histogram hasn't helped me to recognize exactly what it does or how it works. Do you have any insight that could help me understand this better? Well, Gary, Christmas present for you. Yes, I have got some insights. Let me get Lightroom set up and I will move over to that and explain it all to you. So, right, okay, here we are in Lightroom, and one of the things I have done is I've created a series of test images, and if you've watched my video, it's on the channel, all about the shadows versus the shadow sliders, the recovery sliders, shadow recovery and highlight recovery sliders versus using the curves adjustment. You'll see me use the monochrome version of this, and these basically it's these two here, the PSDs. Those are the ones which will help us understand what's going on with particular tools. So let's start off with the monochrome one. Let's go into the develop module and let me just explain what we've got here. We have got 16 bars, and the leftmost bar, everything is, all the three channels are set to 0. 3 channels are set to each set to 1, so it displays it as a percentage. If you look, actually, let me go full screen. You see it's better. Make sure everything is reset. If I hover over here, you can see the values. It's displaying it as a percentage. I didn't really want it as a percentage, but you can see the percentage goes up. It's in the 16 values of hexadecimal. So it's if this was in hexadecimal value, it would be 00, 00, 0, 0, 0, 11, 11, 11, 11, 22, 22, 22, and so on, all the way up. And that gives me a histogram here. Now, what's worth noting is how this histogram is calculated. You'll notice, well, why is it thinner why have we got a thin bit and a thick bit? Well, the reason we've got that is because the histogram is being generated from a preview, and the previews, when they are based, they basically do the anti-aliasing between the different color values, and that just indicates that that it's not all one value. It almost is, as close as we can get it on there. Now, why have we set that up? Because once we've done that, we can see what different sliders do. So, for example, the exposure slider, if I move that up, you can see what it actually does. It moves the values in the middle upwards, or downwards. It compresses on one side and expands on the other. So we can see how it's actually moving. Which is why in the video that I did, you'll notice that with shadows, something weird happens. It does something strange to the values. They are no longer single value ones. Anyway, if you want to know about that, you watch the other video. So right, contrast, what does contrast do? Well, contrast separates them out in the middle and brings them together at the edges. So you can see that's what's happening. So with that, let's look at clarity. And I want to do clarity and talk a little bit about clarity because this will make a bit more sense of dehaze. If I do clarity, move the clarity slider up, look what happens. We find that the values are no longer single value. Why? Because of what's happening with clarity. What does clarity do? Well, clarity looks for the transition between colours and adds contrast at those points. and particularly within the midtones, which is why it's mainly affected around here and not right at the edges. So to add extra contrast there, if we take this middle section here, what it's done is it's darkened on the left-hand side of it and lightened on the right-hand side, which gives the effect that these pillars get spread out. So that's what happens when you add clarity. Now let me reset everything on there. Now when you do the dehaze, watch what happens. It does two things. First of all, it's looking for those edges and it's adding an amount of clarity to it, but it's also darkening everything as well with it, which is what we'd expect with a dehaze, because a hazy image is bright. We want to get all those light tones and find the colours and the contrast that's in there. So it's bringing everything down, and it's adding clarity, adding contrast to the edges of things. So it's giving edge contrast. If I go the opposite way, you'll see what happens. We get back to our thin lines, and then it starts moving everything up, and it's also adding brightness now to these edges. So it's lightening up, adding a little bit of contrast on there, but it's moving all those colours upwards. Now, is that all it's doing? No, absolutely not. There's an algorithm behind this that Adobe haven't revealed the full details on. It is actually doing image analysis, trying to analyze the image to work out where there may be haze to remove it as well. So it's not just playing around with the histogram, but the biggest effect we can see is on that histogram. But as part of what that algorithm does, it also messes around with the colours. I say messes around, it affects the colours. And this is where one of my other charts will help. So if I bring this one up, now this is 16 different colours. And they're created, that's pure red. You can see, I go full screen, look up here at the values. They disappear as soon as I move the mouse away. But you can see red is 100%. Here we've brought in a little bit of blue. We've brought in all the blue to get magenta. So these are basically prime colours going through there. The three prime colours are red, green, blue. We've got the secondary colours of magenta, cyan and yellow, and then the tertiary colours that go between those to give us the full spectrum. Now, you'll notice on the histogram that we've only got 2 spikes on there. And in fact, just about everything is in this one. Why we've got a spike here, I'm not quite sure. But I think that's the anti-aliasing coming in there. But everything is full value. Everything is set to full value, so everything is clipped on there as far as Lightroom's concerned. So we've got that. Now, if I do an exposure change, nothing happens because we're at that maximum. It can't go any brighter with it. If I bring it down, we just end up bringing everything down on there. So exactly as we'd expect. Contrast, again, nothing, because they're all the same brightness anyway, so we're not going to get that. Now, clarity. Let's have a look what happens with clarity. If I bring the clarity slider up, we're adding contrast to the differences between. So this spike is getting wider and that spike is getting wider. But here's the interesting thing with dehaze. If I start adding dehaze, look what happens. We're separating out the colours. And look what's happening. The blue colours are getting darker. which is exactly what you'd expect with a dehazing, because the idea is we've got a mist there and we want to bring back the details, because it's the mist has got blue light coming through it. So what it's doing is it's finding the blues and trying to darken them, and the other areas, the non-blues, it's lightening. So the non-blues is that secondary colour. The reds and the greens, they're actually moving up slightly as I do this. So watch what happens. There's a little bit moves up on there. Not all of it, but a little bit moves up. And if you add haze, it goes the other way. It adds blue in there and darkens the reds and the greens to create the haze. So that's basically what it's doing. That is why, Gary, you would have been using the dehaze slider even when there's no haze, because what you've been wanting to do, as you've probably seen me do, is to enhance the blues, because that's what you want. That's probably what you've been using it for, and that's one of the things it's set up to do. So that's a very simplified explanation on what's going on. It's definitely doing more than just what I've talked about, because there's an algorithm trying to analyze the image in much more detail. And that algorithm is going to fall apart with test bars like this. So it just allows us to see the default actions a little bit. And I bet you've been using it, the same as I do, to darken your blue skies, to make things look a little bit more vibrant with there. So that's my basic explanation. Let's have a look what's going on in chat with there and see whether that has done it. Right, okay. Nope, nothing in chat. Okay, I'm talking to myself. Right, okay, so now let's move on. Image feedback. Let's go through the photos which were in the Facebook group this week. Let me get Lightroom set up with that, and then I'll switch over. Right. On Facebook. So the Facebook ones I'm going through a little bit quicker because I haven't got all the shooting data on it. So let's have a look in the develop module. Right, okay. So here we are. Nice image from John, another one from John here. Reflections. Again, I do quite like it. It's a good black and white conversion, John. That's been well done. Maybe just a tad more contrast would help, but that's a minor quibble. I'd like to try and encourage you to avoid putting your horizons through the middle. And the way to do it would be to shoot it from lower down. I've said this before about some of your beach images, so apply the same technique with the lake as well. It would have worked through the middle had it been totally calm and that was a mirror effect. That's when it would work. But because it isn't, I'd like to see that at a 1/3 line on there. James, I don't know whether you watch the live streams or not, but thank you for sharing this one. Really like it. Nice angle on it with there. One thing I would suggest is, as I was talking about earlier, a little bit of dehaze I think it needs, just to help bring out that detail, maybe a little bit of clarity as well. But nice shot, wide angle lens by the looks of it to create the effect on there. Good use of it on that. So well done, and thank you for sharing. Not sure about this one though. It doesn't really do much for me, I'm afraid, on there. I would, if anything, I'd like to see the cyclist more in between the palms, and then maybe if he was in between, then maybe you'd have got away with a square crop, something like that. We need to straighten it up as well. Something like that with the cyclist in between might have worked with it. Very sort of Instagrammy type feel on that would be my suggestion. Gary, another one of yours. Again, lovely black and white conversion, nice scene. Well done. Not really anything I want to add to that. Nick, again, you're another one. I don't know whether you actually watch or not, but I do love this light coming through the through a scene, and I really like how it's brought out the detail, the veins in the leaves. One thing I would suggest on this, Nick, is if you could get into a position where you could just maybe a macro setting. I'm not sure what camera you're using, but macro mode, just to concentrate on those veins through the leaves would be really good on there, on that one with the light coming through on it. And then moving on, Peter, Christmas Angel. Difficult to tell with this one whether it's in sharp focus. I have a feeling it wasn't. Possibly camera shake, or maybe, I don't know now. I was looking up here and that looks slightly soft to me. And then I looked down here and some of these leaves, paper leaves on the tree look a lot sharper. So maybe front focusing on that, just watch the focus on there. Even though there's no face, we kind of assume where the face should be would be the bit that needs to be in critical focus. Right, another one of John's. This one was had a bit of debate about this whole area being blown out. And I have to say, I agree. I don't like it being blown out to that extent. What can we do about that kind of thing? Well, there's not a lot I can do with it on here because it's a JPEG, and I bring that right down. There is just nothing there to salvage on there. So how would I deal with this kind of shot? Well, there's two things I would do with it. One would be I could fake it in post-production, or I could do something like I would possibly do two exposures and combine them in post-production. One where this is underexposed so that we get that disc of light, and one where it isn't, which shows everything else. However, let's see what I can do. And I haven't tried this one in advance. Let's just see how good or how bad I am on it. Let's level everything up first. Ooh, just something like, this is a tricky one to find where the level is meant to be. I'm going to go with there and push that up. Right, what I'm going to try and do is remove that altogether at this stage. I'm going to do it with the spot healing brush in here. This would be a lot easier in Photoshop actually, but I'm going to try and do it in here just to try and show what's possible. So if I go out something like that, no, we want to take it from there, and I'm going to go clone rather than anything else. Now, it's obvious that it's cloned, so what I'm going to do is I want to try and break that up a little bit by taking a little bit of cloud from somewhere else and bringing it over there. So the way to do it is, it's an awkward one. You have to select it there, move that to where you want, and then grab that and pull it in to just try and break that up a little bit. And this time I'll try with the heel on there. So now if I come out of there, we've kind of broken that up a little bit, but we've left the sun reflection in there. So we need to reflect that in the image. I zoom in so you can see. And the way I'm going to put that in is I'm going to use the an adjustment brush here. Yeah, come on. And basically I have a custom one which I call Paint White. And what Paint White is exposure, highlights and shadows all the way over. And if I make this full flow, feather it almost down, so it's quite a harsh one, I can now put in a circular sun about here. And that's obviously not enough to overcome it, so I now have to do new. This is going to be tricky on here to actually do it. I can't do it that way. I'm going to have to, what I'll do is I'm going to go into Photoshop to do it. It's probably where I should have gone in the first place, to be perfectly honest. I want to just bring up the detail in the foreground while I'm in here. So I'm going to just come out of that adjustment brush, bring my exposure up just a little bit on there. Add a little bit of dehaze since we were talking about that. A little bit of clarity in there, not too much, and that would do it. Now, edit in Photoshop. I shouldn't have closed Photoshop earlier. I should have left it open in the background. Oh, wrong option. At least it's open. And let's try that again. Edit, Photoshop, edit copy with Lightroom adjustments. That's the one I want. And there we go. So now I'm going to take the paintbrush, and I'm just going to, this time I want effectively the hardness to about 92%, size is about right, and a single, get the right white, single press on there. Now I got opacity at 50 I didn't want, so I'm going to have to do it several times to create it. And we've effectively put the sun back. That's not brilliant. I'm just going to undo that. I want to make a couple of changes to it. And I think it needs to be less hard for it. And bring the opacity all the way up. Bring the size down just a fraction to something like that. And now try. And that's about the best I could do. If I wanted to spend a bit more time on it, I could add just a hint of yellow into that as well. Oh, no, wrong colour on there. So that's about the best I could do to give you that glow in there. If I wanted to spend the time trying to match the sun color up and get that right, but that's about the best I could do with it. So let's have a look at the comparison. So I'm going to do, just going to reset on there. That's the original, and that's my edit on it. So we've done several things on there. If I wanted to spend a bit more time on it, I could sort out a little bit more of the, hang on, there it is. I could sort out a little bit more of that glow in there, but that would be my my attempt, the best I could do to fix that one, I'm afraid, John. So let's move on. Where are we? I've lost where I am now. Oh, that's because I was editing it. It's come to the back of the thing. Right. Here we go. Another one from John. I included this because it's a really nice wintry scene. Again, just watch your verticals on there, and it just needs a little bit of a tweak like that on the verticals. But other than that, really, really nice. Might benefit from just a tad more contrast. And that's something like that. Just got to watch the solarization on there. I mean, that probably won't happen on your original file. It's because I'm working on a Facebook copy of it. Donata, thank you for joining the Facebook group. Hope you're watching this. I don't know much about yourself or this image, but I do like it. I'm assuming it's a photograph of a print of some description, painted on wood by the looks of it. I would just say it's slightly dark on there. Unfortunately, I haven't got your shooting data, so I can't say why that would be. I suspect your camera was on automatic and that it's seeing a lot of white areas, it's overcompensated. So use exposure compensation just to add a little bit of lightness to it, and you'd end up with something like that. That's about a stop and a third extra light onto it, and I think that's a much better version for that extra light in there. Dalton, I don't know whether you're in Brazil or not, but this is a photo from Brazil, which I'm thrilled to receive on the Facebook group, having visited Brazil a couple of times in recent years on my travels. Really like this. Love the dark, well, appears to be a dark moody sky on there, but it could be a dark mountain. We're looking upwards, so it's unlikely to be sea in the background. But whatever it is, it works really nicely. And I've just got to say, Dalton, I love the fact that you put your signature on one of the buildings in the corner. Let me just zoom in so people can see that. I just love that idea of making it look like it was just a sign on the building. I looked at it and thought, oh, there's a sign on the building there, and then realised the sign was your name. So it's really good on that. Again, I haven't got much resolution to be able to check whether it was critically in focus. It looks to me as though it could benefit maybe just a little bit of lightening up. I've got to be careful because I don't want to blow. No, you might be spot on actually. Maybe it's just the shadows that need bringing up a little bit. There's just a little something, and I'm trying to work out what. Maybe it's the right balance. I don't know. There's just a little something that it needs on there. I can't tell with clarity, obviously, because it's such a low resolution image, but I really do like it. I just want to see a little bit more of the detail with the wires without them getting lost in the shot. So I actually think they're quite important to this shot. I bring that up. Contrast? Is it contrast I need? Let's just have a look before and after. Before. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. No, I think you're right on the white balance. It just needs that little lift of the shadows, I think, on there. But lovely shot. Nice feel for it. You've got the thirds. You could potentially lose a little bit off the top there. Just so that we've got the 1/3 line going through here. Something like that. I think that would work on there. So thank you for submitting that, Dalton. Hope to see some more of your images in the Facebook group over the coming weeks. Right, there's a cracking shot from Robin, and I believe she's been getting a lot of likes in one of the groups that she's been posting this one in. This is my magic 20 minutes after 20 minutes worth of light, 20 minutes after the official sunset time, to get that lovely blue sky where the artificial lights match the fading daylight, and you've got enough time to get the light streaks on there. And I just give a very slight rise to that on there. Lovely shot. Well done, Robin. Ruskin, another newbie to the Facebook group. Thank you for submitting. Love the panning shot here. 20th of a second, you said on it, and the idea of you follow and then take the shot as you take. One of the tricks with panning is don't try and click and pan. You pan and click and carry on through till the end of the shot. Really great composition. You're on the 1/3 line of the wheels there. Everything just works on that as a panning shot, with a nice black and white conversion as well. Well done. Thank you for sharing. Hope to see many more of your images in the Facebook group over the coming weeks. This one's just silly. A teddy bear sitting in a rocking chair with Robin's Robin in its hand. So just had to share it. Bit of fun. Gary, nice shot. I changed the angle slightly to try and get more of the trees behind, and perhaps try and use that more as a bokeh effect rather than the window in there. Also, I'll just bring that up slightly. Again, that's personal preference on there. Helena, again, I don't know whether you're watching. I'd love to know more about this image, about how you created it, because I haven't got the shooting data. Were you using a mask to get the masking the light to get that heart shape? How have you done the pop colour? Are the flowers real? Have they been painted on? I'd love to know more about it. The overall thing is great. It works. It's a striking image. I just want to know more about it. So I'd love you if you post a little bit more in the Facebook group about that. Robin, and I noticed something on this. You had somehow managed to get some of the swirls into this one. So I'm guessing you had done what I did in that little tutorial about fading some of it through to let the swirls through. This is really 1960s psychedelia, and it works as well. One thing you might want to try is try and keep the thread that's holding it into the shot. I don't know whether it would work or not, but the whole thing just works great. Maybe don't change it. I do like it, and this is one of those few times where putting it in the middle does work, but if you made that a little bit smaller, you could actually work out which way I want to go with it. It is one that would go in that sort of format, but I'd like to see it just a little bit smaller, but just having the center point of that spiral off center might be an interesting idea. Ruskin, again, welcome to the group, welcome to the live stream. I think you said you were going to be watching in later, and this is Accra, which, if I'm not much mistaken, we know as the Taj Mahal, and you've deliberately flipped it. And at first I thought, oh, I'm not sure that's one I would have flipped, but you know, the more I look at this, and I want to show this full screen to everyone while I'm talking about it, the more I look at it, the more I get drawn into this image. It's a shame I don't have the high resolution version to say. The colour toning on it is great. That flipping just, it highlights and heightens the idea of this being, it's another world. This will probably be lost on most people watching this, but here in the UK at the moment, I think it's on BBC, there is a TV series called His Dark Materials, based on the Philip Pullman book, which is all about alternative worlds and alternative realities. And in the opening title sequence, they do this sort of effect, so almost back to back, two completely different worlds. And it just reminds me of that. So it's an intriguing image. I'm assuming it's sharp. The problem is I haven't got the resolution to really tell on that, but assuming that is all sharp, that is a wonderful image. I really, really like it. And I look forward to seeing more of your images, Ruskin, on there. So let's move on. Donata, again, another nice image, a bit underexposed, just needs lightening up so that we've got that in there, to something like that. Playing Silent Night, English translation thereof, Santa, playing that. I just think one thing about this dark area at the top bothering me slightly. I would be possibly tempted just to crop it at that point, because those lines match what's down here. So I would go with something along those lines on there. But nice image. I like the fact that it's slightly off center with it. I'd perhaps like to see a little bit more of the music stand, but that's a nitpick on there. Thank you for sharing. Gary, I know what you're trying to do here, trying to get down at dog level. Unfortunately, I'm suspecting this is a phone shot. It's not quite focused on the eyes. Those eyes are definitely out of focus. So really concentrate on getting the eyes in focus. But kudos for shooting at the dog's level, which is the right place to do the shot. Donata, another one, a blue Christmas tree. Now this looks very North African to me. Either North African or southern Spain, very Moorish. I've done a lot of travelling in Arab countries, so it does sort of really bring that to me. The whole sort of courtyard, the tiled walls, the arches on there. I love the look of that. Again, I think just a slight rise in the brightness, maybe bring the highlights down just a touch on there, but lovely composition and nicely balanced too, because you've got the tree balanced by the column on this side. The only thing I would watch are these little leaves which are sticking in here. Just be careful with those. I don't know whether it's a plant you could have just turned around to move it out of the way, but lovely Christmas shot there. Well done, and thank you for sharing. And a fun one from John to finish. Low angle dog walker. Again, just needs that. And that's it. So let me go have a look at the chat. We're nearly done. Right. Oh, Amir. Yes, yours, York Minster. Right. On there. So let's have a look on here. Subvid saying golden ratio crop. I wish I knew which image you were talking about now. This is the problem because I can't see the comments while I'm doing the going through there. It will make sense to everybody else. I don't matter. And Robin did a drop shadow of the bauble to make it merge into the. Ah, right. Okay, slightly different way. Walter saying how much he likes that Taj Mahal shot. Yeah, I have to agree with you on there. It is a fantastic shot. Amir, thanks for letting me know it was York Minster. Great shot on there. So let's move back over to there and move on. Q&A, anything in here for Q&A? Nothing new by the looks of it. So as we get to the wrap up, but don't disappear yet, there's a couple of announcements to go. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for letting me loose on your images on it. And if you are a first-time viewer on either on replay or live, if you haven't subscribed to the stream, please take that moment to do so now. I really appreciate it if you could. Add comments to let me know you've watched if you're on the replay, and hit the like button. We've still only got 15 likes and there's 22 of you watching at the moment. My usual thing, if you do find it helpful and you want to contribute financially to keeping me going, then the link's on the screen for the Buy Me a Cuppa. And as I said, thanks to Mark for this week's cuppa. Merry Christmas, Mark, on that. And everyone who's contributed, I'm going to send this week, I'm going to send out my inspiration sheet, unless you're an Academy member and you're going to get it already. You've got it already. It's the Christmas one on there. So again, thank you for that. And this week's new image for the group. I was so torn. I really, really wanted to use the Taj Mahal image, but it's Christmas week. I had to have a Christmas image. So I'm afraid, this sounds horrible, John. Sorry, John, but you're not the image I wanted, but it's a cracking image anyway. Your bauble and the light coming out from it. It's one that got talked about a lot during the week, so it is actually a worthy winner on there. So hope you don't mind. I've cropped it and I've flipped it to make it work as the banner image for the week. I will put that up as soon as I finish the show as the new cover image on there. So thank you for that on there. Congratulations, John, for that. So next time, right. Next week, I'm doing a special all about New Year's goals and about how to set goals that are ones that you can achieve. Now, I'm going to do it with the examples of about photography. I'm going to talk about photography, but the techniques will apply to anything else you want to set as a resolution for the new year. So it's going to be a great one to tune in for. Now, regarding what I'm going to ask for in the Facebook group this week, I was really struggling with it to come up with something that would be appropriate, because there isn't really anything about New Year's goals as photos. So what I thought is we'll continue the Christmas theme, but let's have the emphasis on family and fun. Now, I know a lot of us can't meet up with family as we'd like to, but if you are able to, let's have something about family time, fun time over Christmas, that particular theme. But as ever, the Facebook group isn't exclusively about the theme. You can post others, as you have all seen anyway. I will pick up images on there. So that's for next week. So it only really leaves me to say, well, thank you for watching, and to wish you all a very, very happy Christmas. I know it's a tough one. It's not the Christmas we want, but let's try and make the most of it. Enjoy what we can. And you know what? This Christmas, it will be different. If you can't meet with your family, make that Zoom call. Did you know that apparently Zoom for Christmas Day and I think New Year's Eve, check it out, they are removing the 40-minute limit for multiple people taking part. So you can have those longer sessions. Why not have your camera, your thing set up at the Christmas table at both ends if you can't be together? Enjoy that time, even though you're apart. You're going to be in each other's hearts. Enjoy Christmas as best you can and have a fantastic time as best you can. And you'll remember this Christmas because it's different. So thanks for watching, folks. Have a great Christmas and keep making great photos. And I'll see you in a week's time and in the Facebook group, of course. So bye for now. Right, this is the bit where I have to do the alternative ending for the cut down version. So thanks for watching this Christmas edition of In Studio. You're probably not watching it at Christmas. So when Christmas comes, hope you have a great time and thanks for watching. If you want to see the full version, you'll have to join my academy. See you then, and until next time, keep making great photos. Bye for now.